So I want to introduce, and if I get the names wrong, please. So Jesse Green and Kristen David. So they are 7th grade science teachers. No, something more. Life science teachers. That's what I knew there was something missing. Life science teachers at Tantasqua Regional Junior High School, and they're going to give a presentation to us right now. So.
Okay, so as you just heard, my name is Jesse Green. I teach 7th grade life science at Tantasqua Junior Regional High School, which is in Massachusetts, not Rhode Island. So we're about 100 miles away from home right now, and it's pretty exciting that we're here. I'm here with not just my colleague Kristen, but all of these kids who have basically been working on a project with American Chestnut at the center for more than a year. It's almost a year now. They started in 7th grade. They bridged the project throughout the summer, this past summer, and they are continuing this project now. And as you'll hear in a little while, they hope to continue working on it for a long time to come. So that is pretty exciting. I just want to make sure that I thank you for inviting us to come to present our project. We're really proud of it, and we're happy to share it, and we're thankful for your support and in all the different ways that you've given it as a Chestnut Foundation in general. So we've been doing two things with the project. First of all, the main goal is that we're trying to breed a regionally adapted blight-resistant American chestnut tree adapted to Massachusetts. The second thing is that as teachers, we're trying to find ways to use the American chestnut story to augment the learning of ecology in 7th grade life science. Because the science of the American chestnut, it's basically an epic story that has the power to really hook young minds in a strong way, so that not only are students learning about American chestnut, but they're learning about the bigger symbolism that American chestnut has for human impact on the environment, and basically how we need to take care of our world so that it's still here in the future for us. So I just wanted to give you a little stat. We started this little by little. It's been building up. Last year was we have 3 7th grade science teachers teaching about 300 students a year. And now that we've ramped this project up to being part of the curriculum in all 3 7th grade science classrooms, that means at the end of the school year, 300 kids leave our building knowing about American chestnut, about the story and the significance for, and the lessons that it can teach us about the environment and how we should operate for the rest of our lives. So I think that is really significant, seeing as the American chestnut story is something that is starting to slip from common memory. So anyway, some people, I'm not sure if this is true, but someone here might remember me. Does anyone remember me? Someone might remember me. I'm going to give you a little backstory. I attended a Massachusetts, Rhode Island annual meeting. I don't know, it might have been 2010 or 2011, but it was at the Harvard Forest in Petersham, Massachusetts. And back then I didn't teach life science in 7th grade. I was a 6th grade special ed teacher. But I worked with science teachers in the 6th grade in a different town and co-taught life science there. And a funny thing happened. We were out on our doing a tree ID project one day, and kids had a little booklet filled with pictures of different leaves of trees, and they had to go out and try to find samples of each tree and bring those back to the classroom. And as we're out there, the student came up and was like, "I can't find this one. This one, there isn't any of these around." And I was like, "Well, let me see what it is." And I look and it says American chestnut. And I I went to school before becoming a teacher. I went to school for landscape architecture, and I think in a tree ID class I had for 5 minutes, one professor one day said something about American chestnut and said basically it's still alive and unable to compete and unable to make seed, and so it's like slowly dwindling and someday it will go extinct. And that's all I basically knew. So he shows me this, and it's, that leaf was in that book inadvertently. The teacher hadn't realized that it was there. And I said, well, you know what, I happen to know something about this, not a lot, but you probably aren't going to find it because it's, and I told him what I knew, which wasn't that much. So he went off, and then a couple minutes later, he comes running back. I mean, he's not walking, he's like trampling things, he's like running back. He's like, I found one! I'm like, what? No, I'm like, let me see this. No, you didn't, let me see this. And I'm looking at it, and I mean, sure enough, I mean, it matched, everything in the book that we had about it. I think that is one. And then since it was he created such a commotion, all the other kids kind of joined around and they're like looking, what do you find? And all of a sudden nobody was looking for red maple or hickory or anything. Nobody's looking for anything they're supposed to be looking for. And we ended up stumbling upon this high density area of American chestnut sprouts in the woods near that school, which was named Chestnut Hill, which makes sense. And they just went wild. So, was this significant? I mean, look at all these. I thought they were kind of on their way out. What are they all doing here? And that's what kind of brought me to that first meeting, in 2010 or 11, whenever it was, at the Harvard Forest, because I needed to find out, is this find, all these chestnuts, something significant? And basically at that meeting, I stood up and I said, yeah, everyone ran around at that meeting and introduced themselves and had said why they were there. And I was like, yeah, I'm a teacher, and basically I just have a bunch of students that are just nuts about chestnuts, and you guys all clapped, and I found out that it wasn't all that significant, that this forest filled with American chestnut sprouts was really that important. I asked, I think her name was Ruth Stampini, does that ring a bell? Charlotte Stampini. I asked her, I was talking to her, and she's like, well, it's significant in that the site must be a good site for what chestnut needs. And so if anyone wanted to study that, that is significant. But other than that, if they don't have sunlight, they're not going to flower. She's like, are they flowering? And no, because they're all in the woods, and and that was the kind of the end of it. But that caught my attention, because when those students were so excited to be finding this thing that was sort of like on its way to extinction, I knew that it was a way that we could help teach ecology. And so for years to come, I've been trying to incorporate the story of American chestnut into the teaching of ecology, and have learned since then a lot more about it myself. And now as a science teacher in the science department, the whole entire 7th grade with Mrs. Daly and also Mrs. Quinta incorporated into our lessons. So I think that let me just look at my notes, sorry. All right, so why were students going nuts for chestnuts? I think it's kind of easy to see, but I like to think of it as a story. It's like really intriguing. Like there's all the science, and the science is intriguing, but the story behind the chestnut is what grabs the attention of kids. And I think if we can, stories are something that is memorable, and if we can take an important scientific concept that can teach things that we need to know about the environment at a young age and make it into something that's memorable, people, hopefully, when they become adults, will walk away and live their lives in slightly different ways that might make things better. So if you think of the story, think of this. It follows like a typical plot diagram, the plot structure for a story. Opening exposition, American chestnut story. It's like this miracle tree, back in history. It's like this miracle tree. It's bigger than any of the other trees on the East Coast. It has wood that is more useful for all these different things than any wood that we have now. It's got, the nuts are people prize them for eating themselves, for their farm animals, for wild game in the woods. I mean, there's just all these things. And then, and there's even a Christmas song, you know? I mean, like when I tell the story, I'm like, we don't even remember this thing, but it's like this miracle tree. Because, you know, their kids are thinking, and you can see the gears turning, and I'm like, how many people have ever eaten apple pie? All the hands go up. I mean, how many people ever picked an apple? All the hands go up. How many people ever picked a chestnut? Anyone ever seen one? Did you ever eat anything made out of chestnut? No hands go up. About 150 years ago, every hand would be going up in the room just like your hands are going up now for apple pie. Like everyone would have known. So this is not only is it a miracle tree, but it's fading away from our memory, right? And because of that, we need to keep learning about it and trying to do something about it. So then we get to the rising action part of the story. And there's this invisible invader that comes, and nobody knows what it is, and it's kind of cool because, it starts at the Bronx Zoo, like we can picture that, and then, and then there's like, students this year called them rings of death. Rings of death start like radiating out from the Bronx Zoo as the trees die off and the blight fungus spreads. And then, then we find out that the fledgling U.S. Forest Service employs armies of people to cut down, forest breaks miles wide across the state of Pennsylvania to make it stop. I mean, this is like a movie, and there's all this panic and nothing works and it spreads all the way down the East Coast and it's like a really terrible ending, Except that the really good thing is that it is not actually the ending. For other species, that climax, at the end of that conflict, think the dodo bird or the passenger pigeon, it ends like as an unhappy ending where the organism goes extinct. But with the American chestnut, it's like hanging out in the woods because nothing, the blight cannot affect the underground part. And so that all of a sudden, as soon as students learn, that happens every year. What can we do? What can we do, right? Yeah. She'll tell you, right? They want to know. And for years, I didn't really know. I mean, I don't know what we can do. I know that people are doing things. There's this organization called the American Chestnut Foundation. There's scientists trying to do things. And that's just like a really unsatisfying answer. So, but then the school year goes on and and I always feel like that we're missing something. Like we need to actually do something because the lessons you could learn further lessons you could learn by doing something would be very, very impactful, I would think. So, I'm going to take a break. That's the backstory. So I'm going to take a break from that. I know I'm probably talking for too long, but I can't help it. Where's the clicker?
Right next to it.
All right. So, that's the past. Sorry. And so anyway, let's skip back to June 1st, 2011. And if any of you know the history of our region, on June 1st, 2011, a tornado ripped across western Massachusetts. It started in Springfield, Massachusetts, and it went up over the mountain into my town, which is Munson, right past my house. Nothing happened to my house, luckily. It went through the towns that almost all of these kids live in, and it basically ended right at the edge of Sturbridge over here. So, and this is a satellite image of the Earth, and you can see the line of the tornado on the ground. I mean, it really was a path of destruction. And this hillside here is a picture from my town, Munson, and it just happens to be the place where we're doing a lot of our work for our project. So, countless homes were destroyed. I mean, this was my best friend's house in Munson. Here's the monument in the center of town, but you can see like all of the destruction behind that. Houses were turned upside down. I mean, when you think of tornado, tornadoes happen on TV, but when they happen in your own town, you know, it's a little bit of a different story. Miles and miles of property, forest land, you know, totally flattened, wiped out. Here's a picture of that satellite image from an airplane, and you can just see it going on and on off into the distance. And that was a pretty terrible time. This is my church. But since then, the church steeple's been put back up, and you know, the devastation in our forest lands has been cleaned up. Lots of clearing has happened, and things are looking a lot better. And this is the top of the hill where we do a lot of the work. The name of this hill is Mount Ella, and you know, a few years after the tornado went by, I took a walk on Mount Ella, and I'm looking around, and I just went up there for a walk to see what it was like. And I started noticing that look at that, there's an American chestnut, right? I remember it from the woods at Chestnut Hill School, right? And then I was like, but these ones are big, you know, they're not, you know, the sprouts in the woods at school were like only this tall sometimes, but this was big, it was taller than me, you know, and I go up a little further and there's another one, and then I go a little further and there's another one. And basically the top of this mountain, which totally got wiped clean by this tornado, is like teeming with American chestnut. It's everywhere. I mean, it's just surrounds you, and they're going for it too. They're not just like kind of wasting in the woods. I mean, they're reaching for the sky, and they're going stronger. And if you look close at their bark, they do have the blight. There's evidence of canker all over the bark. But at the same time, there's evidence of flowering too. And I was like, you know what? I don't know. So basically, I had to write an email because I have this history of not knowing what we should do about it. You know, I sent an email in the middle of the night to someone, I can't remember who, from the Mass chapter. They got back to me, and before long I had 4 Mass chapter people sitting in my classroom at school, and it was kind of funny because they're like, so what do you want from us? And I was like, well, what do you want from us? You know, like we want to do something, and they're like, well, I don't know, what can you do? And I was like, I don't know, I mean, you tell me. And there was like a lot of, we don't know what to do, but we all know we want to do something. And so we you know, through a number of different conversations, we finally got to the idea that we want to go up onto the hill here and use the light-resistant pollen provided by Jared Westbrook. Thanks. And cross-pollinate to try to do something to make the regionally adapted blight-resistant tree. And then conversations continued from there with the administration at our school. And not only do we want to cross-pollinate and, you know, generate those first seeds, but our school administration has agreed to set aside a piece of land, it's basically the front yard of our school, and to grow a research orchard so we can actually grow the seeds that we produce from the top of Mount Ella and see where that takes us to the next step. So once all of those things kind of fell into place, it was time to recruit some students. And so I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Daly, who's going to tell you what happened with that.
Yeah. So I'm Kristen Daly. I'm also a 7th grade science teacher at Tantasqua. And a lot of times when someone asks me what I do for a living, and I say I'm a teacher and I teach junior high kids, their first reaction is usually, oh my God, how do you do that? You know, why would you spend your day with 113-year-olds all the time? But I want to tell you a little story about these kids here. So when we first realized that there was so much excitement from students, so much energy, and that we kind of had sort of a plan, we needed to figure out how we were going to go about doing this. So we asked, we set out a time to have an informational meeting, and we had over 30 kids come and find out about our Tantasqua Chestnut Club. And we wanted to make it a little bit strict kind of rules to get in, so we had them write an essay about why they should be part of our club, and we were going to restrict it to a certain number. But we ended up having more than what we had planned applied, and we just couldn't decline anybody because they were all so excited. And I remember thinking to myself, you know, if we can have extra kids, they're probably not all going to come back anyways. And then fast forward to the summer, where, you know, everyone's on vacation and doing things, and we're doing field work at Mount Ella, and these kids are showing up in the middle of their summer to come help us. We even had one person come from the Cape. His dad drove him from the Cape, dropped him off. He worked with us during the day, and then his dad picked him up and they go back to the Cape.
Wow.
And then that same day, I remember being out in the mountain there, and it was so hot, and like sweat was, I could just feel it dripping down my back, and I was thinking, what are we doing? And one person even got sick from being so hot, and I said, do you want to go back to the van? And she said, no, I want to be out there doing the field work. So it didn't matter. They kept coming back. The summer passed, we set up a meeting for the fall, and here they are all again. They have given up time. Today there was some other school activities, and some of these kids missed that to come here to present to you. Their passion, their energy, their enthusiasm is unbelievable. So when I got asked that question, why would you ever teach junior high? It's because of this. Because these are the kids that are there and working hard, and I'm just really proud of them. So at this point, I'm sure you're excited to hear what they have to say. So we're going to turn it over to, you're up first, right?
Hi, I'm Brendan Metz. About a year ago, went to the first meeting for our club to learn about what we'd be doing. To join, we had to write an application stating why we wanted to join. Most, if not all, who wrote it said we wanted to help save the tree. But we all had our own personal reasons, such as mine, which undoubtedly is the most bizarre. Mine is the picture on the screen. You all village from Star Wars. The nickname Redwood of the East Coast gave me the idea that because the scene used redwoods as the trees used to support villages and all, that if the chestnut was a similar size or larger, it could also support these massive platforms, which this isn't the best picture, just show it, but there's like platforms larger than this from and stuff. And I just wanted to make something that like that in my own backyard or something, which the trees we have now wouldn't be able to support stuff like that. And just a great tree, and I want to make it a competitor for the next movie that will show the greenwood of Endor, the home of the Ewoks. So I hope we can bring them back to glory, and newfound glory as soon as possible.
Hello, my name is Alexis Carson, and I'm here to talk about tagging the trees today for you. As I recall the events of last year, what stands out the most for me is excitement. The bus jolted as it came to a stop at the base of Mount Ella at Flint Park. Excitement radiated off our skin as our feet planted the ground. Our group was led to an American chestnut at the bottom of the trail. Thousands of trees loomed behind. It was clear that we'd have to learn how to identify the chestnut trees. Dennis and Lois explained the long square leaves and how short the trees were, especially since they were so big before. They told us to look for the reddish-orange, life-sucking fungus, Cryophonex parasitica. Now that we knew how to identify the American chestnut, we had to know exactly what we were looking for. Dennis and Lois told us to look for spiky brown balls called burrs, as well as flowers called catkins. With that, we began our hunt. Our eyes frantically scanned the area in search of both burrs and catkins. Finally, we heard, "I found one." Everyone raced over. It was perfect, with minimal blight damage. The next step was to collect a sample to test if it was a pure American chestnut or not. Then we had to tag the tree. Lois took out green tape, which we labeled ML1, and tied it on a branch. We were given a paper that stated latitude, longitude, and the name of the tree. Dennis took out a device to determine the longitude and latitude. Eventually, we found 10 other trees. We then walked back to the bus with pride. We continue to walk with pride today, and we'll continue to walk with pride tomorrow, knowing how big of a difference we made.
Hi, my name is Olivia Roy. Pre-bagging was a very important part in our process. In science, learning about the American chestnut's backstory fascinated me. When I heard there was going to be a club, I knew I had to join. I remember wanting to get in the club that I knew I would have to make a good report. So I typed an essay, but thought that wasn't enough. I asked my grandfather if he knew anything about the tree, since he works with wood and knows a lot about it. He said he had a couple on his property, but one that was a good size. So I took some pictures and took a leaf off the ground from the tree. I put it in my report and passed it. In producing the chestnuts, we had a pre-bag. We tagged American chestnut trees that really resembled their species. So trees that didn't have blight yet and were a good size and produced good female flowers. To bag the female flowers, we used paper bags and had zip ties, as you can see on this tree. Working together, we all had a different job. We pre-bagged female flowers of those strong trees, numbering all the bags to keep track of them. Also, making sure we knew how many bags were on each tree. First, we found a strong tree, then grabbed a limb carefully. We cut off all of the male flowers. Someone numbered the bag, then put the bag over the female flowers. After, someone would put a zip tie on, making sure not to zip it over the flowers. We can't change the past, not yet anyways. So, we are going to help change the future of American chestnuts.
I'm not part of just an everyday project. What? Oops. Okay. I'm not part of just an everyday project. Being a part of the American Chestnut Tree Project is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Hello, my name is Sydney Leanna. I'm an 8th grade student at Tantasqua Regional Junior High School. I am very thankful to be part of such an amazing project. I'm also really thankful for getting to be here today with all of you. I originally wanted to join this project because I found it really interesting when I went to the meeting where they were telling us about it. It sounded fascinating, and I'm so glad I decided to write that essay because it's one of my favorite things that I do at school. This experience has been different than anything else I have ever done, which is why it's so fun for me. I get to try something new. Ever since last year, this group has become a family. This is also a really good way to help the environment, which I also love doing. I love animals and nature, so this is perfect. I joined this project not knowing how much I would end up loving it. I can't wait to further our work in this. My favorite part of this experience, and what I will be talking to you about today, was when we were all up on Mount Ella, the place where we have the chestnuts that we were working on. It was the first time everyone really got to work together and use the tools to pollinate the chestnuts. We all got to do a lot as a team, but we also got to do some individual work as well. Our group was able to do jobs that not everyday people get to do. We learned about the pollen and how to pollinate. Working as a team is important as well. All of these pictures have two things in common. Everyone working as a team and everyone being very proud of what they have accomplished together. This picture has us at the school committee meeting. Right before we all went in to present, we got our shirts that have the logo on it, this shirt that everyone's wearing. I remember that we were all so excited because this really symbolized for us that we were all part of something. This picture is us as a group after we pollinated one tree. We were all so happy to have helped out the environment and the chestnuts. This is also right before Mr. Green said, "Good luck, kids." He said this because he was referring to the chestnuts as our kids. we had pulled down the tree and we put the bags on it. So when we let them go and they would fly back into place, this is when we would say, "Good luck, kids." Just as simple. So they would do well. These are all just a few instances where we work together as a team. There are many more, such as the times when we were all after school with Lois and Dennis, Mr. Green and Mrs. Daly. They are a huge part of why we have and will continue to succeed in our part of the project. I want to also thank them for being so amazing, for educating us on these trees and taking time out of their day to work with us. Being here today is an honor. I thank all of you so much for being here and listening to what our group has to say. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation. Have an amazing day. Thank you.
How long have you ever had to wait for something? I'll take an answer if you want. Well, we've spent the past year or so learning that you'll have to wait for a lot of things, like flowering, pollinating, and of course harvesting. All of this waiting sent our group, especially Mr. Green, into a spiral of nail-biting anticipation and mud nuts. Sometimes waiting can make people do really strange things.
Hello everyone, I'm Becca, this is Olivia, and we would like to start by saying how flattered we are to be here with all of you today. As almost none of you know, we do announcements over the intercom every day at school.
At the last meeting this group had before we went to harvest our chestnuts at Flint Park, we were all biting our nails hoping for good results. Then we had an idea for the group.
We had the idea to add an extra moment of silence or send some kind of hopeful message in the morning of our trip to hopefully make all of our positive energy into getting all the chestnuts we hope for. We love the idea.
But unfortunately, a week later, we forgot about our moment of silence. We realized this as soon as we ended announcements. When Becca pointed it out, a devastated look took over our faces.
But we kept our hopes high, and even though we didn't get the 100 chestnuts we wanted, we did get 40 pounds, and that's pretty amazing too. Wrong way. I'm sorry.
It was especially amazing how every time we opened a bag, Mr. Green was anxiously peeking into the bags, biting his gloved hands. By the third or fourth bag, he had all of us doing it too.
And even though we didn't get all the chestnuts we hoped for, the amount of mutt nuts, as we refer to them, was just as cool.
Especially seeing how a species that is struggling to survive is still spreading itself and self-pollinating, even when it's so close to being extinct, is just so astonishing.
So even with a lesser number of chestnuts than we anticipated, and an increased number of mutt nuts, Liv and I would like to call this a success.
And
Thank
we
you.
want to say
Thank you for listening to our story.
Hello, my name is Ian, and this is Lewis. Hi. Everyone in this room has one thing in common. We love trees. Lewis joined the project because there are a lot of chestnut trees on his property, and his dad knew about the foundation. I joined because I love trees and I want to save this great species.
We were fortunate enough to get this area in Flint Park to manage this area to grow chestnuts trees. It's about 10 acres and completely dedicated to the growth of chestnut trees. Flint Park is on Mount Ella, just above Chestnut Avenue. Flint Park used to be full of American chestnut trees, and that's why the town of Munson gave us this land to manage. Also, the founder, Flint Park, had a fascination with American chestnut trees, so he made it a park.
In the future, the project will continue to manage the area so that it will one day be teeming with American chestnuts. First, we had to cut down all of the plants that could possibly thwart the growing of the chestnuts. Without all the other plants, the chestnuts will have an easier time growing. This will ensure more flowers on the trees so the species can survive. Have a nice day.
So, just a little bit about how we're planning our future is now that we have harvested our 40 nuts and we're getting ready to plant them, we have some other things we're planning. So we kind of made, we had a board meeting. So in the picture on the far right, we actually had a chestnut board and put our hands in the middle. But we're dividing up into some subcommittees, and we're planning some sort of greenhouse that we're going to build to house our plants. We're working with the art teacher to build a mural and some kinds of signage around our research orchard, so it's more than just trees. It's going to be something really pleasant to look at. And just about how we're going to go about planting our trees, where they're going to be, and all that stuff. We've done a lot of planning. And one more thing I forgot to say earlier was that these guys, their commitment doesn't just end when they leave the junior high next year. A lot of them are planning on working through their high school years and planning on coming back to visit with their grandchildren someday when these trees are there.
Hello, my name is Emma, and we've worked together starting small and ending big. It started last year in 7th grade science class. Just like every other day, I had no clue what our lesson was going to be about. But it turned out to be about American chestnuts, what they are like, what people use the wood for, and how they die. It was just a normal lesson happening in all of the 7th grade science classes. We even went out into the woods and identified a small chestnut tree. Later in the year, the topic of the great chestnut trees expanded, big enough to start our own little club and to try to prevent their extinction. In the beginning, we were learning how to identify and pollinate the trees on Mount Ella. Now we currently have 40 pounds of pollinated chestnuts to plant in a large space for the Tantasqua Regional Junior High School. In that picture, we hope in the end, the king of the forest will rule once more.
Joining this Tantasqua Chestnut Project, I think will create a better future for the next generation and us, which is why I joined. I first learned about the project during science class Monday. I didn't think I was going to join at first, but my mom talked me into doing it. I went into the information beginning class and learned about it. I was really excited because my plan for the future is to become some type of biologist. So I thought this would be a good experience to test out how I liked it. On our first trip, we went to Mount Ella, and everybody was excited to see the first tree with the long, pointy, serrated edged leaf. When we went up the hill, we started finding trees left and right. And I could hear Alexis Carson pointing out, "I found a bird! I found a bird!" And I found one of the biggest birds of all, which is the one in this picture. And I have the bird with me today, so we're going to recreate the picture. If you're going to do it, go ahead, guys.
We can.
There you go.
And see.
Hello, and nice to meet you. My name is Nadine, and I would like to share my experience of being a part of the American Chestnut Tree. I, for one, can't believe how much my group has accomplished in less than a year. And I am so thankful for all the people that helped us along the way. We started our journey when we took a field trip to Flint Park for the very first time. I can still remember the awful smell of gasoline that drifted into the buses
on our way there. I remember the steep mountain we hiked up that seemed like Mount Everest at the time. I remember how excited we were when we found all the trees we tagged that looked like they had a fighting chance against the blight. I also remember how nervous I was to speak in front of the school board to tell them about the American chestnut, when now, here I am, speaking in front of all of you. Anyway, you can't imagine how much fun and laughter we all shared during our trips to Munson. One time, my 7th grade teacher met us at the bottom of Mount Ella with water and snacks, and man, was that refreshing after our hike. Also, the view at the top of Mount Ella is amazing. I could stand up there for hours if they would let me. And all the pollinating, bagging, bird collecting, brush cutting, and planting we did up there seems like it happened at least 2 years ago, when it all really happened in less than a year. I cannot wait for all the new adventures this project will bring us. Like the time when the playground at Flint Park caught on fire and we had to turn back to the school halfway on our trip there. Or the time when I had to climb a tree to cut down one of the higher branches. To stay balanced on the limb below me, I had to hold on to one of the branches with one hand and use my other hand and shoulder to lop off the branch with the cutters. My shoulder was kind of sore afterwards, but it was definitely worth it. Another time when we visited the park, Brendan and I had to carry down about 20 decent-sized walking sticks that the group had found. With a little bit of help picking up the sticks that had slipped out of my arms as we hiked down, we finally managed to bring the walking sticks to our stash at the bottom of the hill. This has all been a fantastic experience, and I look forward to keeping up with this club all through high school and hopefully after that as well, because I know it will pay off in the future. I would like to end by saying that every single person in my club is amazing. In fact, you all are amazing. You could be doing anything right now, but instead you chose to put in a heck of a lot of time to save a tree that almost doesn't exist anymore. I am so proud that we all have the heart to come together to stop the blight in its tracks, to strengthen the ecosystem, and to bring back this amazing tree. So thank you all for caring, and I am so grateful to be a part of this wonderful project. I would also like to say a special thank you to Lois and Dennis from the Massachusetts chapter for supplying our club with these awesome t-shirts, for the immense amount of time they spent working with us, and for everything else they have done for us. Others I'd like to mention are Kendra Collins, who is the Regional Science Coordinator from Vermont, and she has helped us by answering our teachers' phone calls and maintaining our trees. Jared Westbrook, who is the Chief Scientist from Meadowview Farm in Virginia, who believed in us and sent us the blight-resistant pollen, the school committee for supporting us, our very own principal, and the tech school for supplying us with the buses we needed to get us all to Flint Park. Thank you all so much for allowing us to be here today.
So I just want to say thanks again to everybody. And not only are you helping us to grow American chestnuts, but you're also allowing American chestnuts to help us grow our kids. Oh yeah, I had a sappy picture for this. Isn't that nice? Yeah. That's it. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much. This was wonderful. So we dream about days like this for the work that we've done. So and thank you for what you've done. The enthusiasm matters so much to us. So thank you. So I was 13 when I found out about the chestnuts up on a hill on the Appalachian Trail getting botany lessons. And some things stick with you for a long time. So I want to send us off to lunch in a few minutes. I want to say a couple of things. Number one, we had our board meeting, our yearly board meeting upstairs, and we voted on directors. We also voted on a new position on our board called student director. So we created this position for a young person to be on our board for a set period of time to learn what we do and learn more about the work we're doing. So Lois and Dennis, I'm sure will be talking about that with you and other people about having a student director on our board. Paul, did you have anything else you wanted to say about lunch?
Well, were you going to pass out some chestnuts?
Yep, we're gonna pass chestnuts while you're talking.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Oh, sweet, cook ones.
Yeah, they're roasted chestnuts. I was just going to say that we're going to start the food line in this first door right behind Brian here. You pick up a plate, pick up your fork, a knife, save it. We only have one fork and one knife for each person, so save it for dessert and stuff. And then go through, there's about 20 different dishes. Highly recommend that you take just a little bit, otherwise you're going to be stuck at the end. And then there's some drinks as you come out of the kitchen. We're going to be a little bit tight for space, but turn those chairs around. Take these two benches. I'm going to assign you guys to carefully take these two and turn one around. Then you can look at the people you're eating with, right? And you also, it may be nice enough to eat out on the porch. When you're done and you have food scraps or something, we do have a compost bin here. It'll be sitting over there by the entrance of the kitchen. And then after about a half an hour, we'll open up the desserts and people can get their desserts as well. Okay?
One more thing, about 12:30 or so, Brad will be starting his Chestnut 101. It's everything you always want to know about chestnuts from the beginning. There's no stupid questions. And you can either continue to eat lunch or ask questions about who you're sitting with, or pay attention to what Brad is talking about. Any questions? Enjoy lunch.